This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the town of North Haven.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Fire Commission meeting for Thursday, May 16, 2024 in order. I'd like everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to ask for the approval of the minutes of the Board of Fire Commission meeting, our regular meeting held on April 16, 2024.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. The Chief's report.
Good evening, all. I'll start with alarms as we normally do. Looks like we're going to be covering a time period of April 16th through yesterday, which would have been May 15th. Since that time, we've had 12 different incidents in which we provided transport or ALS assist on scene, 10 incident responses to the highway, 105 incidents in which just an ambulance responded and there was no FD resource added. We are trending at about 38% of overlapping incidents right now, and last year at this time we were at 1,917 alarms. At present, we're at 1,733 alarms. And that covers our alarm stats. Regarding the budget, I'm going to give it to you through period 11, which brings us to the end of May. So it's going to be pretty close. We've taken out, I don't anticipate taking out many more POs in the month of May than we already have. So last year this time we were at 90.9%. This year we were at 89.8%. So we're trending to be on track. You're aware through the budget report you have of some lines that are over. We're hoping to make that up in some other lines, but keep in mind as well that we are asking to make up lines now in operational lines when in fact it's payroll lines like contractual placement staffing that are over. There's not much that we can do to control that when you have as many injuries and absences as we do. And so along that, we've had one member who has been out on long-term sick leave since January 2nd. We're budgeted to have 2 shifts with 11 firefighters. We've only been able to maintain 1 with 11, so there's been no savings incurred at all there. That firefighter is expected to graduate the academy in only a couple of weeks. I've had another firefighter on injury leave since February 23rd, and as of this week, I have another firefighter on injury leave, and it is for an unknown period of time and is yet to be diagnosed. And so we're dealing with a number of injury leaves and long-term sick leaves, and of course that's going to drive up that contractual replacement staffing line.
So there was another injury leave this week?
Yep.
And we don't know how long that's
I don't have any idea how long yet. Too early to tell.
So really, in terms of shifts of 11 firefighters,
We're down 4.
because we're down 4,
Essentially 4.
we're not at,
Yeah.
okay.
So there's no savings at all on any of that as we anticipated?
There's savings on one
On
shift,
one.
which I provided to the
Yeah.
Board of Finance and
Right.
to you a few months ago.
Right.
But you know, again, if that shift happens to be one of the ones with occurring injury, then yeah, there's going to be savings every month. But I mean, we're still carrying a lot of time off right now.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the income, I have not been provided anything further on income, so I cannot report anything other than what I did last meeting, which was through period 9. I don't have period 10 numbers. It was not provided. That's what I have for the budget line at this time. Any questions on the budget?
I do.
Sure.
On the report that we were given, it says 86.2%. And did you say 89?
Yeah, so I ran it as of today, literally as of today. So there may have been a couple more POs pulled.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Remember, you want these a week ahead of time, and so you're getting information that's a week old sometimes. Yeah.
One other quick question. You had mentioned that there were line items coming out of other, you mentioned it in terms of the payroll. Can you explain what you meant by that? It's coming out of other operational?
So
it was someplace else in the budget, but it's now coming out
Yeah,
of
so
ours?
if you look at, so just take the majority of the fire department budget. I haven't ran the numbers in maybe a couple of years, but I want to say it's like around 90% of the budget is payroll. 10% of it or so is operations.
Right.
And so if my payroll is running over, contractually replacing the staffing line, for example, I can't necessarily be expected to make up $100,000 in operational. It's going to go over. The overall fire department budget's going to go over in that case.
And then but the things that happen once the contract is settled, that is coming out someplace else in the budget from last year, didn't they?
Yeah, that should be coming out of someplace else.
Okay.
And Chief, you talked about the POs. Now, it's different, is the POs, the request for repairs, is that what that is, that you're speaking of?
There's POs that need to be taken out for every purchase.
Okay. And repairs as well?
That includes repairs.
Okay, and I know we had some discussions previously because there was a delay in getting those approved in order to get work done. Are we back on track with that?
It depends. It still seems like there's some POs that are quite delayed in getting approved. I'm waiting on a couple now that have been close to 2 weeks.
Close to
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Now, is that impacting us as far as our operation is concerned? For instance, I know we talked about doors and
Yeah.
other.
Sure. So for example, I've had an overhead door at a station that's been out of service for over a month.
So how do we get the apparatus out?
Well, it happens to be a back door,
Okay.
so we're fortunate there, but
So you have
the process is the
apparatus
same.
in. I thought we had an understanding with the finance department that there were certain POs that we had submitted that were going to be automatically approved if they were under a certain dollar value, especially if, for instance, if it was a door where we wouldn't be able to get an apparatus in or out. Is that, am I?
No, your understanding is correct. Yeah, your recollection is correct. There was about 30 or so vendors, 20 to 30 vendors that we exchanged with the finance department at the start of this fiscal year where this came up, that we agreed that we would need to carry open POs so that we can incur charges as the need arises, so that we wouldn't have operational delays.
And other than the overhead door, do you have an idea as to what the others might be that are impacting us?
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
Okay.
No.
I think we need to revisit with the Board of Finance or certainly the Finance Director as to why this delay is taking place when we already agreed that those 30 or so vendors they were going to give you the authority up to a certain dollar value, if I remember correctly.
It was in conjunction with the purchase
Correct.
policy of the town, right?
Right.
You're allowed up to $2,500 before you need anything further, right?
Okay.
So I'm a little confused on that process. So that wouldn't have anything to do with the Board of Finance, right? Because they approve the overall budget. And if a certain amount is in a line item, what is the Finance Department approving if the Board of Finance and the town has already said, okay, we want this amount of money to come out of this line item?
So there's a process, right,
Yeah.
that has been established, and my understanding is it's been a process that was established and then it was reestablished, so the whole process itself has been, I think, very difficult for the department heads to adhere to, or especially in our case, because in our situation, if an apparatus door is an opening, we need to get that done.
Yeah, that's why I'm confused about it. So like in my job, when a budget's been approved, our director is in charge of the budget, which you would assume are the department heads.
Yep.
So if I, as someone in my department, wants a PO approved, it has to go through a process in which she says, yes, this falls within our line item, the amount that's in this line item for this budget, and it gets approved through the person who's running the department. I guess I'm a little confused about the extra step because what are they approving? It's already, the budget's already been approved, and he's making sure that the money is
But-
there,
well,
right?
You're making sense, and that's exactly correct, but this process requires another step where that request needs to go to the finance director
Right.
for the finance director's approval before we're able to go ahead and contact the vendor to have the work done or the purchase. So that is the delay. So if that doesn't get done, the chief can't get the work done.
Right, so just, I mean, you guys might not know this, and this maybe is a question for, what is the, I mean, I understand the purpose, it has to go through the finance director, but like, what is there a time that he's gonna say, no, you can't have the money for this?
Yeah, it
I don't
happens.
think it's appropriate.
It happens. Or the POs are reduced, or they're just not approved, or, yeah.
So, I mean, that's a dilemma, and and I agree with you. If the budget is approved, and when the budget's approved by the Board of Finance and the residents of the town during the referendum, we have a fire department budget, we have line items. The chief indicates that this needs to be purchased or this needs to be repaired, and a PO is created. And the expectation for everyone else, I think, in business says, okay, our department head has the authority to go out and get that door repaired or purchase that item up to a certain dollar value. And if it's beyond that value, then it needs to go to the finance director for his or her approval. And so, that's what normal practice is. I think in our practice now, every PO needs to go to the finance director. And my further understanding is, if you have more than one PO for the same vendor, you need to cancel one PO and then create a new one. Is that correct?
Correct.
So it's a very convoluted system that makes it very difficult operationally for the department head to get things done.
So like, for instance, if in the budget there was the request for, I'm just making this up, like computers that cost like, $6,000. That's over the 2,500. So even though the residents of the town voted for it and the budget got approved, the finance director then could basically
Say no.
say no?
Yes. That's the way the system currently is written by the finance director.
Yeah, it's good to know.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think it's a problem.
I think that, it's obviously a
I
problem.
mean, it's sort of like having the ability to, I keep thinking filibuster, but that's not the right word, veto something that the town already voted for.
I'm looking at POs right now that we've been waiting on since May 2nd. It's May 16th.
I'd like, if you can think of any, not right at this moment, but it would be good to know which things have actually been turned down, because
Well, it's the turn down and delay.
delay is a problem, turn down completely is a
major
bigger problem.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's a dilemma that our chief is going through to smoothly operate the department. And again, you talk about 90% of the budget is payroll, the other 10% obviously is repairs and purchases and so on and so forth. So that 10% is being closely monitored by the finance director, even though we have total confidence in our department head that is very capable of making the decisions to repair the overhead door that doesn't work. And because that happens all the time. I mean, we've got doors that are going up and down, I don't know how many times a day. So, thank you for that explanation, and Jen, now your understanding of that. It's mind-boggling to me that if the policy of the town is that the department head has the authority to purchase up to $2,500 for either repairs or a purchase, at their discretion, because the department needs that, well, it should be done. And then that invoice goes to the Board of Finance for payment. I'm sorry, the finance director.
The invoice and the packing slip.
Yeah. So, I mean, that makes sense in every other business. So, obviously, it's a very convoluted system that the department heads have to adhere to. And it sounds to me like it's a moving target, because it was a different explanation as to what the process was maybe 6 months or 8 months ago, or a year ago, than it is today. Am I correct?
I believe you were part of that conversation, yeah.
That's correct, yeah. So, anyway, it's food for thought. Any other questions of the chief regarding his report? Hearing none, Board of Finance correspondence. Chief, have you received any correspondence?
I have no correspondence other than the routine day-to-day happenings of the department.
Have any commissioners received any correspondence? Old business of the fire department.
Old business, the only thing I wanted to continue to talk about is the 2 engines that we expect at this point, I would think within the next 30 days. And again, on the idea of budgeting, at that point, we should be able to relinquish control of the leased engine at $3,000 a month. And so I would imagine we'll probably have a June payment that we'll have to pay. And then hopefully as we start the next fiscal year, I'll be able to return that and stop incurring a $3,000 a month cost that was not budgeted for. That's all I have for old business.
Okay.
I've got a couple of things.
Yeah, Jim.
First of all, the ordinance for the tax abatement. I went to the Board of Selectmen canceled the vote that was supposed to happen at the end of April. And they had a special meeting it was to change some of the wording. Unfortunately, the changes to the wording basically focused on 2 things. They added in EMTs to go along with firefighters and police. And then they added a step in here in which, in order to, if there are questions about whether a death is considered occurring while performance of the duties of the first responder, that it goes to the selectmen, and then the selectmen will consult with the commission and the chief of whichever department. But the decision is still back in the selectmen's hands, and it's interesting because during this meeting, they brought up, someone brought up a question on the bill that just passed about line of duty deaths being, giving, the chief of police or the chief of the fire department the ability to determine line of duty deaths.
The governor signed that bill today.
They want to get this ordinance passed before that takes effect in July, so that the decision remains in the hands of the selectmen. But the language that we objected to initially is pretty much the same as it was from the beginning. So this vote is going to happen on Monday. It's a town, the meeting is at 7, and it is taking place in Town Hall. I'm personally going to go and vote against it because I would like to see the language. The language is still very restrictive in terms of what is considered line of duty death. Well, Sally didn't want to call it line of duty, but she thinks that there is a difference between performance of duty, doing your performance of during your work versus in the line of duty. Jeff D'Onofrio seemed to think that it's more semantics. I just wanted to bring that up, let people know about this. But the language is designed to, if there's a line of duty death, it's designed to look at people who shouldn't qualify even though the death was considered a line of duty death. So, and if anybody wants copies of this.
I appreciate that. I, like you, I will attend that meeting and I will vote no on that. I really believe that there should have been police commissioners, police chiefs, fire commissioners, fire chief, and fire and police residents participate in the creation of that language. You know, I'm hopeful that by voting this down, and hopefully we have enough to vote it down on Monday, that the governor's, the new state law will supersede whatever is then going to be written by the town, and allow the chiefs of each of the departments, fire, police, to make the determination as to line of duty death.
Right.
That would be my position, and I'll articulate that on Monday night.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm disappointed that they have broadened this whole thing and, you know, again, muddy the waters, if you will, as to the definition and whether or not the physician is still involved in determining whether it was pre-existing or not.
They have, the physician is in there, but the physician is in there as not necessarily required. But I think, I mean, it's a very long ordinance, and it clearly, there are so many details to it. And Jeff D'Onofrio was pretty clear. I think, you know, the selectmen kept talking about, well, we have to make sure that we fall in line with the state statute. But the state statute is extremely broad. And it's done that way so that towns can decide how they want to implement it. So we don't have to put all that exclusionary language in there if we don't want to. And that would be, you know, to me, that seems like that would be the best solution. But I also agree 100%. If they had brought people in from the beginning, this has been going on for months because of that.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah, anyway, well, thank you for bringing that to our attention.
and just
And if any other commissioners are able to make that meeting on Monday night at 7 o'clock, please attend.
I'm sorry, I
Go
got two more things.
Go ahead, Jen.
I know we've talked about in the past the highway blocking. And someone had brought up an idea, which we could never do with the current staffing that we have now. But it's just a thought. You know, people have talked about the idea of the dump truck, which there are a lot of reasons why that wouldn't work. But we do have some, when we get the new apparatus in, is there a possibility that if we actually had staffing, that you could have someone, you know, if there's an incident on the highway, bring that as a blocking vehicle, because it obviously didn't, you know, would fit, because that's what we used when it was like a primary apparatus in the fleet. Is that something to consider? Because this is something that I hear all the time. People bring up frequently, is this issue of the apparatus being the blocking mechanism, and because we've had more than one that's been hit, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, it's just a thought. Obviously, we're not going to solve that tonight, but it just was an idea that I thought, oh, well, that might be.
So your suggestion is to have the new apparatus be the blocker?
No.
The old apparatus be the blocker?
Correct. The apparatus that is being replacing.
Got it. So, and you're exactly right, it's a manpower issue.
It's a manpower. That's what I told
Yeah,
the person who asked me.
And it's will the old apparatus start and get out there?
Well, that's also true.
And will it be able to be there on time with the rest of the apparatus in order to protect the personnel that's on the scene?
I mean, the other thing you
Is
could,
that correct, Chief?
Yeah, no, so we don't have the staff. I mean, we have enough staff to cover the calls we have, never mind additional staff to be able to bring multiple apparatus to the highway to serve as blocking. It's. I will tell you this, I'm in touch with Commissioner Higgins from DESP on a pretty regular basis. We had a meeting again today, and I'm part of a small group of people that are taking care of putting together a highway safety plan study that hasn't been done since the early 2000s. And so that was one of the topics that I talked with him about today on the phone that we think we might want to try to incorporate, and we're working on that in conjunction with the DOT.
okay.
That'd be marvelous if we're able to figure out a way on a plan to have the DOT.
It's the entire state, though. It's not just, I mean, so this is
Right.
the entire state of Connecticut. Every fire department is going through the same exact thing that we're going through. I don't know of any fire departments that are deploying any kind of, you know, DOT truck, crash truck, nothing. Because, I mean, most departments are in the same exact situation that we are.
Yeah. And unfortunately, with the distracted drivers, I mean, most recently, I think it was last week, we had a state trooper was at a scene and the car ran into the back of a state trooper that was helping someone else on the highway. So it's, you know, lights and flashing or whatever, and people are just oblivious to it.
Right.
But
It was just a thought someone brought up, and I knew immediately you couldn't do it with our current staffing, but if there was any, you know, change, could that be an option? And yeah, in terms of getting there on time, it may just be an issue of, like, maybe the newer apparatus wouldn't be out there blocking quite as long. Could you, you know?
I think the play here is to start to engage with our state representatives and senators to try to get them to compel the DOT to actually start to staff vehicles in each of Connecticut's regions to be able to respond to incidents on the highway and to provide blocking. Because the problem is we end up being up there for a very, very long time, hour to 2 hours sometimes, because even the state police is looking at us as, can you guys stick around and just give us some cover? And it's really hard to drive away from them and say, sorry, you're on your own.
Right.
You know, we are very careful in how much additional apparatus we continue to commit, and we rely heavily on the volunteers to be able to do that, but it's a dangerous place, and we're on the highway multiple times a day. The idea would be that the DOT would be able to respond with a number of crash trucks, because you can't just put one on the highway. We've been over this. One crash truck covers one lane. I-91 North Haven is 4 lanes plus breakdown lanes. I mean, in order to effectively shut down I-91, you need 6 crash trucks. I mean, and that's just me. I'm not a crash DOT person, but my gut tells me we need at least 6. So it's more than just bringing a truck to the scene. There's a series of vehicles that need to be able to get there and need to get there in a timely fashion. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I mean, we see the DOT when they're doing construction work on the highway, and there are numerous trucks lined up and inching their way over to close the highway, or numerous lanes.
And that's with signage and everything else
Yeah,
long
right.
ahead of time.
Let alone an urgent issue. I mean, it's a tough situation. It's dangerous.
Right.
It's dangerous.
Something else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anything else, Jen?
Yeah, the last thing was, I just wanted to go back to the conversation we had last month about the volunteers, because you said you were gonna, that there was gonna be a change in how they were being deployed, and, not deployed, but when they were being called. So did you were gonna change sort of an operational piece of that?
Yep, so there have been some operational changes in an effort to try to minimize some of the impact on the volunteers. So those have gone into, some of them have gone into place, others have not yet.
So, I just, you know, and I think I had mentioned this in, that I think that at some point, the commission should, we talked about it last night, but last month, but actually vote on that, because it is a change to how the department is responding to the public. It impacts the budget on some level, but I also think it's good for the public to know that if they look at our minutes, they know that we discussed it and that everyone voted on it. And, you know, last month certainly we were supportive of it, but you wouldn't know that from reading the commission minutes, because there is no vote. That is sort of the way that the commission would approve or disapprove. So I just think that might be something that, given all of, you know, the things are happening currently with requests on the budget, that would be beneficial for us to do. So I don't know if that's something that maybe next month we can kind of just go through them and on what those changes are.
We don't typically get into operations at this level. It's too, at the risk of sounding condescending, and I don't mean to do that, but some of this stuff is just too deep and too hard to understand and to explain, and it would get other people that'll watch this meeting to come in with their papers and question everything that's done, and quite honestly, I'm getting beyond that.
So I guess I think about it in a different way in terms of operation. Like when you guys, before I got on, I watched back meetings. When you guys when the commission made the decision, it was brought before the commission that you were going to change the number of firefighters that were on each apparatus. That came and the commission voted on it. I think about, in terms of what you talked about last month with the volunteers, it was sort of, we looked at we've talked about, you know, given the numbers of the volunteers, does it make sense that, that they, you know, to combine the firehouse and, you know, or does it make sense to make changes? So this, to me, isn't like, oh, am I sending, how am I, you know, what am I sending to what calls, in what order, or anything like this.
But it-
This
but
is
it
more like
does.
a higher level kind of, how are, you know, how are we changing the way that there is an operational decision that impacts the budget? And, I mean, when Mono East closed, we voted on, to do that. So
Right.
to me, this is sort of a similar thing. I'm not talking about, but we certainly wouldn't be voting on day-to-day operations, and that's not really what this
I
is.
mean, what we're doing right now is changing run cards. That's what we call it in the CAD system. We change run cards on a pretty regular basis. So this is just more of awareness to bring it to your attention following the budget workshop, in which I made it very clear during the budget workshop that if things were not supported and were not, you know, addressed in this budget, that there would have to be some changes made and some expectations refined. And so we're just doing consistent with what was talked about during the budget.
And I think, you know, prior to the workshop, certainly the chief made us aware of what was going to be presented and what our proposed budget was going to be, and what the, you know, personnel changes and how the volunteers were going to be utilized. We, you know, voted in favor of the chief making that presentation. And I think, you know, voting again is kind of repetitive of what we've already done prior to the workshop presentation. And I think the chief was very clear as to if the request for firefighters in this budget that's coming up for a referendum vote were excluded, we would have to make changes to the, as far as the volunteers were concerned. And it was very clear that even at that point, which was in January, I believe, we had a reduction of volunteers, and since then, a further reduction of volunteers. So I think, you know, a vote on this here really doesn't go anywhere. I think we're thoroughly aware of it. The public, the Board of Finance was aware of it during the budget presentation, and it was clear during our last meetings that we had as to the need to do what we needed to do to reassign volunteers to one volunteer station or another. And hopefully, we were hopeful that they would, in fact, be able to respond at the same percentile of response that they have been. So I think it would be repetitive to vote again, and I don't see any need to do so.
So, Pat, we didn't vote on the budget. We saw the presentation, but we never voted on the budget. At least I didn't vote on the budget. So I don't know that it's repetitive because we didn't vote on it. And right now we're talking about, that was what the department was asking for. I personally think we should be voting on that before it goes. Most of the other departments or commissions do, like the library commission votes on the library budget before it goes to the Board of Finance. So does the police commission. And it's just, you know, we're elected to oversee the fire department on behalf of the public, and I think voting is a way for the public to see that we've actually reviewed the information, we're have the ongoing discussion and looking at, you know, what the needs are, and that we're saying yes, we agree, or no, we don't. So to me, it's not, it can't be repetitive because we didn't vote on it. And at that point, we were looking at, here we're hoping we're going to get four career firefighters, and if we did, the plan might look very different.
It would have been different.
Right, and so now we're coming back and saying, okay, the Board of Finance has decided, nope, this can't be in the budget. Well, you know, these are the options basically the chief is suggesting, and his suggestion was don't, don't necessarily look at this point combining, the volunteer fire companies. Instead, let's look at changing the way, what calls they go on. And so, that would then show, there would be in the record that we discussed it, we looked at all the information, stuff that we're seeing every month, and that we're either supporting it or not supporting it. So I just, I don't see the downside in voting on things that come before the commission, because isn't that the point of bringing them to the commission? So,
Well, certainly, Chief, if you can, next month, come back with some additional information as to, what those changes actually are. Well, that'll give us the clear information as to what the changes have been, and maybe a month's worth of impact as to.
I'm not going to have that. The changes aren't effective yet. I'm giving the commission a heads up on some operational changes. Some of these aren't effective yet, some are, and there's not a good way of measuring it sometimes. It's just not. I'm just trying to be transparent with the commission.
No, I hear you. I'm just trying to figure out,
If we don't go mutual aid to our town the next month, and it's with a zero impact, the following month you may go mutual aid 5 times to a town. I mean, so you can't chop it up that way.
and the impact would be on the overtime line item.
The impact has always been on the overtime line item. I mean, as we start looking at less and less volunteers in town, there's going to be more overtime.
Right.
That's just what it is.
And we have
There's no way
control-
around
And
that.
we have no control of that.
I mean, every time that we would send career staff out of town, one of the chief officers would be on the phone looking to make sure that we had enough volunteers covering the town. If we didn't, we would incur overtime. That's likely going to increase moving forward. How can it not with less volunteers? So the measure of the impact is not something that can be done on a monthly basis. That's something that has to be done on more of a yearly basis, if anything. The run card changes are not effective yet. They probably won't be effective until July at the earliest, because those are big changes for us. And those are changes that require significant effort in CAD in order to make them work, and a lot of computer programming. And so it's not something that we're prepared to do tomorrow. I'm just giving the commission a heads up of some of the things that are happening for transparency.
Thank you. Anything else?
There's no budget impact as of yet. There's not going to be.
right, but I mean, eventually there will be.
But on an annual basis, we can probably measure it. On a monthly basis, there's no way.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't looking so much about the impact. I was looking at if, they're gonna be, just like you said, big changes. And that to me is where it moves from a day-to-day operations. Certainly, we don't want to micromanage, you're the chief. And if you're talking about making a big operational change, then you're gonna be coming and giving us the information, and we're gonna be asking questions. And I think the point of voting on it is to have you're bringing it to the commission, and the public should know that we've discussed it, we looked at this situation, and, we agree, or we disagree, depending on what it is. But to me, that just adds, another layer of it not necessarily being someone coming in and saying, okay, the chief's just trying to do this, so he doesn't, because he doesn't want volunteers anymore, or whatever. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. Anything else under old business? New business of the department?
I have nothing listed.
Good of the fire department?
Go to the department. The only thing that I have listed I want to bring up to the commission is attended a National Fallen Firefighters ceremony at the National Fire Academy in Emmitsburg at the beginning of this month. We have one firefighter that's due to graduate from recruit school in next week actually. And we discussed the operational changes. That was on my list to talk about. The other thing I want to bring to the commission's attention, and we haven't done this yet, I don't think we've talked about this yet, and you're welcome to go online and start to conduct your own research. But as you are likely aware, we're governed by OSHA. OSHA is the authority that we have to listen to. We don't have a choice. It's basically considered law. OSHA is looking to update its fire brigade standards. That's a kind of an old antiquated word, which is part of the reason why it's being upgraded. Has not been upgraded in decades. And so there has been, for the last several months, a push from OSHA to communicate out to the fire service that they are looking at updating. The exact standard would be 29 CFR .1910.156. That covers all fire departments, and that would be something that we absolutely would need to adhere to. So as you can see, I just gave you a brief synopsis sheet. There is not a 1 or a 2-pager available yet that would measure impact. OSHA is attempting to update this for the entire country. It is likely that they're going to be successful in implementing maybe not all of it, but some of it. There is an open comment period right now on their website that individuals and industry leaders and fire departments and municipal leaders and everybody from all over the country are able to comment on. There's several hundred pages of a report that you're welcome to review, but this is a quick synopsis of some of the standards that they're looking to include into their new OSHA law. And so what I wanted to make sure I pointed out to you was you'll see on this, there are close to 40 standards, and if you look, the author is the NFPA. And it says NFPA standard. It seemed like somebody had attended here last month and questioned the legitimacy of the NFPA or the fact that it wasn't standard. This is an example of a federal agency, OSHA, that's taking the NFPA standards and then going to incorporate it into law. And so again, whether or not they're successful in getting all of these included, we don't know, but I would encourage the commission to start looking at these standards. There are some departments in the state that have gone as far in this next budget to assign an officer or hire another chief officer just for the purpose of overseeing and implementing this in the department, because if this goes through or any aspect of it goes through, it could very easily be a huge game changer for fire departments throughout the country. So we have no idea what the financial impact is going to be, because I don't know what aspects of this are going to be become law, but there is a significant financial impact to it. There's a significant operational impact to it, and there's quite a few standards there that we do not currently meet or adhere to that we would then have to. One of the things that are being discussed right now is a grace period for implementation, so that when OSHA comes out and says this is law, that there's perhaps some period of time that allows cities and municipalities some time to catch up, but we just don't know. That's part of the reason why this entire process is going on as long as it is because it's giving all the cities and towns a heads up that this is coming.
Well, this could have a significant impact on the budget request going forward.
Huge.
Yep.
Many of these things we have been pushing for a very long time.
Yeah, it definitely will have a major impact on the budget. And, you know, if it's mandated by OSHA, we have no alternative but to adhere to it. And my guess is municipalities will wait until the last moments, and then the issue is trying to get all of this material together when every fire department in the country is trying to get it together, and will it be available at that point? Thank you for bringing this to our attention, Chief. The parade is this
weekend.
this weekend, right?
Yep.
So
You're welcome to all march in the parade as always. Meet at fire headquarters, and you're welcome to. We can either put you in an apparatus or you're welcome to march.
So that will be, the parade kicks off at 10 a.m.
10 a.m. on Saturday.
So 9 o'clock, 9:15 at fire headquarters
Yep.
on Saturday,
Mhm.
right?
No, it's 25th.
Yeah,
Next
I
weekend.
thought it was the
Next weekend.
25th.
Yeah, next weekend.
Next weekend.
Next week.
Next
25th.
weekend, that's correct.
Okay.
So you're all welcome to join me. See, there's no one here for public comments, so I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Do you hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to call the Thursday, May 16, 2024 North Haven Fire Commission meeting back to order. We have a couple of motions to make. Commissioner Mulligan?
I make a motion to accept Elliot Barber, probationary member of West Ridge Company 3, effective immediately.
Do I hear a second to the motion?
Second.
Is there any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
I make a motion to accept Hayden Mulhern as a probationary member of the Northeast Company 4, effective immediately.
Do I hear a second to the motion?
I second the motion.
Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Would someone please make a motion to accept the proposed meeting dates for 2025?
So moved.
Second.
Any question on these dates? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Any further business coming before this commission? Here are none. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.